This is so awkward. We're like sitting here, we're like, okay, do we start talking? Like what do we do?
I know.
We have like our camera going too, so we're getting some extra footage. Yeah. We'll share it with you.
So tell me about the podcast. Is this the first episode, or who's the audience?
So I mean, as you probably saw, we're trying to kick up like social a lot.
I see that. You guys are killing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of been like a more of a learning experience than us actually putting out good content.
I think January we were like, all right, 2023, let's just make sure we post one thing a day.
Sure.
To try to get out there.
And I think we thought of that like the day before January 1st. And we were like, you know what? Tomorrow we're posting and it's something.
So you guys are doing this all on your own. All these posts.
Oh yeah,
from your fingertips.
Yeah. All right. So let's backtrack a little bit. We have stuff we're gonna talk to you about, but this is what we did. It was probably like October. I got in touch because we were coming up with ideas of like how to get further reach, right? Whatever it might be, like agents, investors, anyone, sponsors, anyone. And so I reached out to somebody to run social media. And when I reached out to them, I really just wanted them to post a couple things and just be like, post something a day. And like, I didn't know. And then she gave me this whole like rundown of everything she had to offer. It was awesome. It was like newsletters and, like email campaigns and posting on, doing a podcast, posting on social media. And it was like this huge elaborate marketing plan. I'm like, shit, like
we do none of this.
We do none of this. And all this stuff would be awesome.
Yeah.
And then she gave me the price and it was like $3,000 a month.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, that $3,000 a month is probably worth it.
Yeah.
Like we're posting once a day, and I pay $3,000 for somebody to do that. Like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But then, so that's kind of where this came about. We started trying to figure out how to do some content. And
content's good, man.
Yeah.
Content is king, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
love it. You need exposure.
Like.
Yeah.
So like it's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I think.
So do we just go straight into asking some questions, or how do you want to? First of all, what's going on? I mean, like I feel like we saw you like River and Post.
Yeah.
And that was it.
2021.
Yeah, it was awesome. You're crushing it, man.
Thanks,
You're crushing it. I feel like we need to like introduce you, like maybe say like how you met him, and then like just go from there.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Man. I can't remember yesterday, but no, I think I reached out to you on like LoopNet or something, right?
Yep.
And then we met up. We had the River and Post powwow. Got into Flagler and Riviera, closed that.
Mm-hmm. Fun times.
And we had an investor drop like a week before.
Yeah,
and you helped us scramble everything.
You didn't tell me that until closing day. I didn't know what was going on.
Dude, how common is that? I'm sure that's like, I've heard that multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was the overwhelming majority of, at least proportionately, the equity you're bringing to the table. So good on you guys to scramble.
It was scary, but we had a little angel investor watching over us. So Elena, his wife. So
nice. She's badass.
Well, you found a solution, right? And that's what this business is all about. When adversity hits, finding solutions.
And that was the first ever syndication that we've ever been a part of. So it was crazy.
Well, you guys are crushing it. I see the rents you guys are getting over there, some of the improvements you made, and you got in and out and refied quick too. So I'm sure that thing is a cash cow for y'all.
Yeah, it was clutch.
So the original refi was really just to get into a good rate, like the 4% rate.
Yep.
So now we're kind of waiting. When the market's kind of nuts right now as far as interest rates
and timing. I mean, you guys crushed it.
With
locking that rate in.
So that we're kind of, we're having, Ron, kind of raise them, making sure we're getting market, but also not scare anybody off, kind of.
Sure.
Keep it consistent for the T12, but we're waiting for, when a good time to refi is.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen people refining now, or everyone's kind of sitting and waiting?
It was you saw rates come up, leverage dropped quickly shortly thereafter, and that came pretty prohibitive for the refi market. So a lot of people that otherwise had planned to refi all of a sudden said, man, I'm leaving a lot more equity into the deal than I had promised my investors, and can't deliver those returns. So, but everybody has been buying on short-term, highly leveraged, expensive debt over the past few years.
Yeah.
So they had to make a move one way or another.
Right.
So, those people that otherwise would have refied, have been over the past, I'd say 6 to 12 months, been often more for the sale side.
Yeah.
That said, lenders are sitting on a lot of cash too, and that's not good business for them. So we have seen, especially coming out of the year here, some special loan products, even on the agency side too, get a little bit more competitive. You guys may have seen Fannie and Freddie drop their rates 40 bips to start February for all applications submitted over the course of this month. So I think there's a bit more optimism on the refi side than there was maybe, Q4 last year. But, nobody knows how the year's going to progress. So.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people going from like a bridge loan interest only is still high? Yeah. But do you see a bridge to a bridge just to kind of get like a little bit further? Is that doesn't even make sense?
No, I mean, bridge now is going to be 8, 9, sometimes 10%.
Yeah. Yes. But interest only, I mean, I don't know how that kind of.
Yeah, no, I think people would rather just opt for the sale at that point. And I think there's some optimism. Like I was just talking with the managing partner of our firm, and he was like, look, man, coming out of 09, sitting in 10, 11, 12, there was no capital sitting on the sidelines. But what you're hearing now is there is a lot of capital just waiting to find its home. And so a lot of those investors that may have said over the course of last year, we're just going to wait, see what 2023 has to hold, build up some dry powder and kind of pounce when those opportunities come about. There's a lot of that money out there just waiting to pounce. So I think groups are more so than they have been in past years willing to look at that sale, pull that money out in anticipation of some better deal flow coming around later this year.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to lead to a little bit of like a boom when the rates start to drop? Like everyone like kind of FOMOs in, like this is the beginning of the next bull run?
Well, I don't think you can wait. On our side of things,
you don't want to.
I don't think you can wait till the bottom because I think that's how you miss out. Because at that point, all the huge players are now pouring their capital into
right. Yeah, I mean, look, and there's some headwinds there too, right? I mean, if you wait too long, how much rent growth are you missing out on? I mean, the fundamentals in a lot of markets, Jacksonville in particular, remain really strong. So we think that. With those headwinds, we are somewhat recession resistant. Nobody knows what's going to happen with rates. I mean, it seems like it's changing by the month, if not the week. Look, there was a lot of waiting, like I said, sitting on the sidelines last year. And I think a lot of those groups are going to be willing to come back around and pounce in the near term, regardless of where rates are. I mean, right, we're in a high inflationary environment. It's not good to be sitting on cash right now. And despite what's happening in capital markets and insurance markets, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Oh, yeah.
There's still a lot of rent growth to be captured and loss to lease in particular, too. I mean, that doesn't just happen overnight, with the absolute tear that we've been on here nationwide, but especially in Northeast Florida with rent growth. It's going to take 2, 3, sometimes 4 years to capture all that loss to lease.
Yeah. Which I think we're kind of seeing, like when we talk about like putting any kind of like renovation value add into the current properties that we have. It's like you sent me something the other day that was like, don't even try to fix anything until you capture all of that.
Well, you want to max out your market rent, and then that's how you can kind of justify going
to the next level.
Yeah.
But if you can push it without displacing the tenant,
right.
No need to shake the tree, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what like we're kind of like, let's keep pushing until the market says no.
Yeah. We kind of got to wait from your intro. Sorry,
it's okay. No, it's all good.
But you give us like a rundown.
Sure.
How you started, Luke, and kind of why you got into multifamily and commercial.
Sure. So Luke McCann, Vice President of the multifamily team at NAI Hallmark, born and raised here in Jacksonville.
Go Jags.
Yeah, go Jags, baby.
Do well.
So got into the real estate game really on the residential side as a broker while I was in college. Just thought, I'm interested in the asset class. I believe in real estate as a wealth vehicle. Figured, why not get my license, try and sell some things without having any skin in the game, kind of learn about the asset, learn about the business, who are the movers and shakers, how to kind of get deals done.
How old were you at that point?
18.
18, so you got started early.
Smart. Yeah.
Smart. I wish we
got licensed over winter break in college, freshman year. So
nice.
And just started grinding from there. Started on just infill vacant lots, like 50 by 100 lots, scattered across town for whatever reason, just got passed over as Northeast Florida kind of got its legs and developed. So found there was some low hanging fruit there. Not a lot of competition in that space. You don't hear a lot of residential realtors saying I'm chasing after dirt, $50,000, $100,000 at a time. So was able to kind of get my foot in the door in that space, and then always knew multifamily was a place that I wanted to invest in. So kind of grew my pipeline on the brokerage side into that, knowing that I wanted to learn the asset again and learn how to get my foot in the door there and grow it. So started selling little quad buildings, 6 units here, 8 units there, in and around Northeast Florida. And then really just grew it from there. Linked up with the guys at NAI in end of 2020, early 2021. They previously had no multifamily presence. NAI is a global brand, but primarily an office, retail, and industrial leasing brokerage.
I didn't realize that.
So they brought us on as they saw a good opportunity in multifamily, as we did. Colleague John Rutherford came over from a more well-known brand on the multifamily side, Newmark. So we linked up along with a team of analysts to come together and just kind of grab as much market share as possible in North Florida. So
nice.
Primarily we're value-add guys, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s product. The vision, the goal is to expand geographically, but frankly the pipeline's been so busy here in Jacksonville that between John and I, we've been able to stay pretty busy.
Yeah, so just real quick, when I met you for the first, I guess we all kind of met you for the first time when we went to go tour the properties, like in person. And then we went to River and Post last time we were here, year and a half, almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago almost. And we all met you, and we had our buddy, John, our partner, and another buddy with us. And we all met you. We all left. We met everyone, really. It was like the whole network at River and Post that we work with closely. And when we met you, we left, and you said something like, I got to go grind on my email game or something like that. It was we're all drunk. It's like 10 o'clock, 8, 10, 9, it doesn't matter. It was nighttime, and you left, and we all got downstairs, and we're like, did Luke just say he's going to work? We're like, that guy... that guy is a beast. That's kind of where we all left off. That's our intro to you.
Look, man, the world's at our fingertips, right? Especially here in Jacksonville. It's a high growth market. Feel really fortunate to be able to work in my own backyard. Like I said, born and raised here, and feel lucky to brag about this market and the way that we do. I think there's a ton of opportunity. I think we're just at the very beginning here. Got a ton of runway left, and awesome. I'm sure we'll get into the metrics on that and whatnot. But just excited to work here and live here.
That's awesome. Us too. I'm surprised we're not down here already.
I know, right?
I'm full time.
Well, now I got 2 kids and.
I understand.
I'll tell you, it seems like a handful of our clients every year find their way here and make it home.
Well, we're asking you about realtors trying to get the vacation home. That's the best I can do of being here as much as possible. That's another
kind of the middle ground. A little bit.
So I guess we have to kind of explain the purpose of the podcast. Obviously, you're a huge part of our network. We love to communicate with you. We appreciate the way you work. But I guess you're the number one reason that we want a podcast. We want to talk about you a little bit, just see what you think, because we think you got the kind of mind that's going to spur growth for us and anyone you deal with. And then just multifamily, like you mentioned a little bit about multifamily and where it's heading. And then I guess the idea, we want to learn a little bit from you on how to scale from what you've seen. And then obviously talking about the Jacksonville market
examples,
specifically.
I think when you mentioned Chris, kind of moving down here, scaling to, I think, 50 units, you said?
Who we're meeting with tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Connect
for lunch.
Yeah,
awesome.
We connected. We're going to meet at Taverna.
Taverna,
cool.
In San Marco.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, that's kind of exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
We do have, you hit it on the head, capital on the sideline.
Yep.
We have a lot of people on our network that are kind of when's the next thing you guys are going to have? I want to get in, especially those that missed out on Flagler and Riviera. So like, you know, just kind of what, you know, how, I guess how he jumped to 50,
Sure.
You know, and was it like a couple projects like that, like 10 units each?
Yeah.
Or did he go like
20 units at a time? No.
Okay.
Got his foot in the door, I think, with 16 units.
Yeah.
And then he's since expanded from there. I know he's looking at some development projects too right now. So
nice. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
But just like you guys, like raising that awareness, you guys have crushed it. I know you're killing delivering the returns to your investors, and they're talking, right? And then that expands from there. And then doing things like this, putting out content can only help push it from there. So from there, I'd say, you know, keep your ear to the pavement, rely on guys like me to, you know, be your boots on the ground, be your resource, continue to bring deals to the market. I mean, there's good deals in any market, right? You just got to stay underwriting deals. You know, keep your finger on the pulse as, you know, things are changing by the week now, not just with debt, you know, but insurance and rent growth and occupancy and concessions and things like that, right? So staying prepared so that when that opportunity does come together, you can bounce on it, right? And you know exactly what the numbers are, you know what rents are, where you can take them, what the employment drivers are in any given submarket, so you can move quickly, right? I think that's how you can get a leg up and look up at the end of the year and you're sitting on 100 units.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Just like talking about like that's all like huge points, and we're trying to focus on those as much as possible. Yep. But I feel like we're also trying to get some pieces of the puzzle together, potentially like pref equity and stuff like that, where it's almost like you need to be qualified or you need to have a certain level of experience to like get the next leg up, right? Like if we went for a 50 unit, like the price point with our equity investors, like I don't think we're necessarily just there yet. Like it might take one more person, but like if you have like the pref equity piece, which we're trying to like discover and get qualified, like what do you think, like when it comes to like a qualifying aspect for, say, it's financing or something, like what do you think is the most important to set up to scale?
I still think it's all about relationships
with investors.
Whether it's the LP side or the pref equity side, it comes down to relationships and then the story of the deal, right? So getting out there and networking, going to these conferences and your guys' network too, just expanding from there, right? It comes down to the relationship, whether it's on the brokerage side or the fundraising side, the operating side. So there's all kinds of money out there. We've talked about it. You know, I think it was $4 trillion pumped into the economy and over the course of 2020 and 2021.
40% of the money supply, baby.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of money trying to find its home. The more you guys can, you know, prove out your motto, which you've done, and just kind of take it and scale from there. May take a little bit more time than others, but leaning on your relationships and then just staying in front of people, showing people that you're active, that you're committed. I can't tell you how many times we get calls from people, hey, send me what you got. Just found Jacksonville, really bullish on it. 6 months later, you know, they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah. Right.
You guys are committed. You got your foot in the door here. You know, you're doing things like this, being really proactive. I think those all go a long way and just kind of buying into the story of Elevation.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we're big on delayed gratification and just staying consistent and being patient. So that's what we're kind of relying on.
Long-term plan. Let me ask you a question. I know we're jumping around so much, but it doesn't matter. This super structured format, we don't want that anyway. How much of the success in all of the investors that you've dealt with lately, how much of the success was due to like that whole like rent growth, money printing? Like if that never happened the past 2 years, 3 years, like is everyone as well, obviously not as successful as we've been, but is everyone still for the most part successful here in Jacksonville?
We're the headwinds that we're facing now are really starting to show who the good operators are and who aren't.
Oh, good point.
You know, over the course of 2018 to 21, anybody could make money, right? You didn't really even have to raise rents or operate it, you know, in a tight fashion to make some money. But now that we're starting to see somewhat of a regression to the mean, the cream is rising to the top too. And some people are starting to get underwater a little bit too. So keeping a tight grip on operations matters again. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. I like that. But people getting underwater, I'm trying to think, is that just because they can't control the Fed? Like, you know, in a sense, like, is that even their fault? Is it even their fault that they, like, did they make a bad move?
Some definitely did. Right, there's those people in every market. It was really easy to raise money. Not that I have experience on that side, but from what I heard, it was really easy to raise money over the past few years. Yeah. Getting loose with the underwriting, maybe cutting costs where you probably shouldn't have. Building out that team is really important. Having a good property manager that has their pulse on the market is really important, especially in times like this. And again, keeping your pulse on the market is important. So when you build out your model, you're putting in the right inputs. People that assumed exit caps of 4.5% now, those are the kinds of guys that are in trouble, because we've seen some pretty big expansion here on the cap side. So
I fucked up. I don't have a pen.
I think
I need to jot some shit down. Like, I can't forget this. I know it's on camera, but
I got you.
I need a pen.
I think I got one. There's a bunch up there.
Awesome. Thanks,
man. I think that's always been kind of, especially being behind like the number side of things. Like, I'll never compromise our pro forma.
Yeah.
Even if it's
I try to loosen them up.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm just like, dude, I'll go down there and fucking manage it.
We are gonna underwrite so conservatively that
we are. Some
under promise, over deliver kind of thing.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What do you see, like, your investors? How do you see them underwriting? Is there any tricks to get deals done? Because let's be real, there are higher price points for these properties.
Yeah.
There's competition. So how do they do it?
Yeah. So,
or do they just have really good financing terms because they've been doing this for a while?
I think those lender relationships are as important as ever. That landscape has changed drastically over the past year or so.
Yeah.
So leaning on your lender relationships is important. Insurance, again, especially just coming out of the gate here in 2023, the market's totally different. 2 years ago, we would underwrite to maybe $500 a unit.
Yeah.
I heard
3-4 months ago, we might have been underwriting to $850, $900 a unit. Now it's $1,200 plus.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you're like escalating quicker too, right?
Right.
A year.
Right. So, but not everybody may know that as they're underwriting deals. And that, again, goes back to, leaning on your resources, having good relationships, keeping a good pulse on the market, because you could be underwriting to $800-900 a unit, feel like you're good, feel like your model's conservative in a lot of ways. But you get to the end of due diligence and you find out what that real quote looks like, and all of a sudden the deal doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you can get crushed in that way. Yeah. So that, and there's some unique tax strategies going on. I think entity sales, if you guys are familiar with it, there's starting to be some chatter about that, just to avoid the implications on the tax and insurance side there.
Yeah.
I think
just to clarify that's when you're selling the actual LLC with the property in it.
Right. Yeah. So it's the same thing. You've got the same exact contract that you otherwise would have, but instead of the property being sold, the property in question is the actual entity.
Yeah. So is it an assumed mortgage that was on with the entity?
Mortgage is separate. You could. Mortgage assumptions are a bigger part of the conversation nowadays as well.
Yeah.
But you're basically purchasing the entity, so you can, for lack of a better word, assume the insurance policy. And then, oftentimes the property tax reassessment may not be triggered as well, as technically the property is not being sold, the entity. So 2 years down the line, when the property appraiser, that sale otherwise would have come across his desk and it's his turn to reassess it, it's not coming across his desk at all.
Nice.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because that's the first thing, when we fill out, or when I go to fill out a pro forma, that's the first thing I do. I'm like, okay, what are the taxes going to be as soon as we get this?
Yep.
That's why I ask you all the time. I'm like, listen, what does this county do? How do they treat, I know
every county's different.
Yeah.
But we actually just wrapped up a pretty in-depth tax strategy, and by we I mean our analyst team.
Yeah.
They went back through all the sales in 2020 and 2021. It's about a 2-year lag time between when the property sale happens and when your taxes actually get reassessed.
Yeah.
They found that the reassessment proportion, maybe it would help if I just kind of start from scratch and explain how this works. So when a property gets sold, your taxes get reassessed, and it's based on that sale price. It's called ad valorem, based on value.
80%.
So yeah, it varies from county to county, but here in Duval County, 2 years later, property appraiser comes around, they see the sale price, they take that sale price, they reassess it. Historically, it was in that 75 to 80% range. We've seen an uptick closer to 85% of that sale price in recent years.
I saw 89 in St. Petersburg.
Yeah. So it can vary county to county, state to state. In some states, I've heard it's 100%. But for 2022 in Duval County, that number was right around 85%, 85%. So 2 years later, say you buy a property in 2021. Property taxes are due every year as early as November. If you pay early, you can get a discount up to 4% as late as the end of March. Yeah. So 2 years later, you'll see that property tax bill shoot up, and obviously the earlier you pay it, the better. But again, it's based on the reassessed value.
Yeah. So let's focus a little bit on like your side of things.
Yeah.
And like when you're looking for properties, what are you looking for, like, that you want to bring to market? Or is it just like, I'm going to scowl the entire neighborhood, anyone who wants to sell? Or is it like a specific, like, pinpointing of properties for you, specifically maybe your team?
So, good point. The team structure is critical there. So us at NAI, we want to cover all things multifamily. So as small as, the quad building, in a suburban location to, top of the market value add space core plus. Like I said, we kind of our focus is in the 60s to 90s product. Yeah. But we want to cover everything big and small. Like I said, we've got a quad building under contract right now in the San Marco area that you guys are familiar with. We sold a 5-property portfolio, over 1,000 units, over 3 states last year as well. So big and small. The way our team in particular is divided up, we've got 3 brokers, 2 analysts. Our associate Andrew Tyrell, who I think has maybe connected with one of you guys in the past.
I think you talked to Andrew. Yeah.
Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah. His focus is the infill space, so call it 20 units and under. For Jacksonville, that's the beaches, Riverside, San Marco, Orange Park, St. Augustine, some other submarkets like that. My focus is on that middle market space, call it 20 units to 150 units or so. Yeah. And then John, our senior vice president, is focused on more of the 150 plus, more institutional players in that space, some newer product as well. So for me in particular, really for all of us in our respective spaces, we are of the mindset that if you own an apartment building in Jacksonville and you're in that space for us, we need to know you. We need to have a relationship.
Yeah.
So for me, that list for market rate deals in the 20 to 100, 150 unit space, that's a 300-400 property list, and that's, well, I should say owner list. It's probably 600 or 700 properties. Yeah. But that owner list is 300 or 400 people. And it's my job to go build relationships with those people and whatever it takes. Started out, built my business just, with the cold calling, letter writing, postcard sending stuff. But as you scale, you get that brand awareness, you get more people on your list. We start to position ourselves as that market expert. So even if we, may not be speaking on a monthly basis, it's all about being top of mind when they're ready to sell. Yeah. And in that process, it's more than just the transactions, right? We really take pride in being a resource all along the way. If I sell you a property, you can expect to hear from me, not just 3-4 years down the line when you want to sell it. We've really been more proactive here over the last couple months with underwriting deals, not just with a sale in mind, but as basically like an audit. So, we'll ask some of these sellers, hey, send us your rent roll, send us your financials. We'll send you back a rent comp survey. We'll underwrite your deal, tell you, roughly where the value is, and we'll go line by line on the income and expense and say, hey, your neighbor is charging, $15 or more for their utility fees or their pet fees and stuff like that. You probably could be a little bit more competitive in that regard. Or
hey, you're like almost part of the property management team in a sense.
De facto, asset management.
Asset management,
yeah.
So like helping them out at a higher level.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll do things.
It's a good approach.
Hey, your trash line item here is running high. Here's a different trash vendor you may want to call.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or your common area utilities are running high. You may have a leak in the pool. something like that. So
that's a good approach.
We like to just position ourselves as resources. Again, most everybody on our team is born and raised in Jax. Obviously, we all live here too. So we like to think that, we're the most well-connected brokers in the city, and encourage people like you guys to lean on us in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that's important too. Like, you're kind of prepping them for their refinance or sale X years down the road, and
cash flow.
Because
you are an asset, a relationship asset to a property owner.
100%. Yeah.
Which we know, but that's how you position yourself, and that's your perspective, and that's why you're successful.
And we spend 100%. A ton of time outside of just developing relationships with the sellers, but with the third party vendors too. So when you come to me and say, hey, we're looking at this deal, who's the best property manager suited for this asset in particular, we're going to have a few options for you in that regard. And the same goes for things as small as like pest control, like I mentioned, trash, things like that, pool servicing companies. That's all part of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And you hit a point where it's like your relationships mean everything in this business, and I think it goes both ways, right? Like, we want to work with brokers like you,
right?
Where you're on top of stuff like that, and I'm sure you want to work with guys who are consistent, and who can close deals. So.
We're in it for the long haul, man. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And your reputation is everything in this business, not just on the brokerage side, but with you guys too, right? It goes a long way. I can tell you when we're having conversations with sellers, even some of the most competitive offer situations, they don't always just pick the highest price offer. They're going to lean on us and, hey, what's your relationship with these guys? Talk to me about their equity. Talk to me about their debt. Let's take a look at their underwriting and make sure that their assumptions are in line with the market. How committed are they to the deal? Have they ever dropped the deal in the past? If so, let's talk about that. Can we get some references? Well, that's all. Let me
dig in that a little bit. So you have seen or do see that sellers don't necessarily take the highest price. So like if they have investors involved, they're still making a decision to take less profit to make sure the deal gets done sooner or something.
It's happened. There's all kinds of variables there, right? And it's a case by case basis. I'm not saying by any means is that a common thing.
That always happens,
But perhaps they've identified an exchange property and they got to close quicker, or like
right. I gotcha. So there might be like another what would you call it? Like a pressure point.
Exactly.
That you can push that you would know
right. And sometimes it's property specific. We just closed a deal in January, larger deal where there was some crime history on the property. Treasury rates were running up. We know that any buyer was going to struggle to go get debt on the property. There may be appraisal issues, what have you, insurance. In that case, they placed a great emphasis on a buyer that came to the table with cash, because we know a lot of those concerns were going to be eliminated just by virtue of them not having to go get debt. Not to mention they can close quicker too, right? So we encourage the sellers and sellers, more and more when there's headwinds like we're facing right now, to take a holistic view. Because what you really don't want to do in this market is tie yourself up in a contract for 30, 60 days just to find yourself at square one.
Yeah.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think time is kind of the thing that ties that whole conversation together, because it's the only resource you can't replenish.
Right.
Right. So I think sellers,
and
especially,
carrying costs too.
And carrying costs, I think. That's probably the biggest factor.
So you mentioned crime on a property. I always ask that question. That's like one of my first questions. That's like a checkpoint. Like, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. I don't want to deal with crime. I don't want to go into a property and have to get police involved.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess on that point, so if you're looking at a potential property and you're talking to the sellers, obviously that's something that I would ask. What do you ask? Like, do you have like a checkpoint? Like, this guy, okay, he's interested, guy or girl, is interested in, or whatever. Could be a guy that wants to be a girl. So say like you have this guy and he's interested in selling. Are there like those questions, a couple questions that you ask that's like, I'm not going to touch this if those things?
No, I mean, look, we're not afraid to roll our sleeves up and get down and dirty, right? At the end of the day, it's all about relationships too, right? So, look, we're not going to shy away from that stuff. Of course, we don't want to put ourselves in harm's way. But there's measures to be taken there, right? But really, it all comes down to how can you quantify that, right? quantifying crime history on the property, what that really means is how is that going to affect your insurance? There's ways to get around that from like a brand perspective. We've seen countless times where, you just Google the property name, go to news, and you can see a lot of the news articles, of past crime history there. And so we'll see, if the property sells and you get newer, stronger management coming in, or if it's just a property management change, no sale involved, do a rebrand, right? So that you can't necessarily trace it back to some of that crime history. So we're never deterred by that. We want to make sure that we got our ducks in a row when we're valuing these properties, so that things like crime history do have big implications on insurance, and it may eliminate the amount of carriers that you can even go to, which obviously affects pricing too, but that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Is there like a way in which you discover any like potential issues in a property? Like I'm thinking of like our flood issue, like not a huge issue, but is there something like where a seller like could potentially try to get by and like now you're kind of liable because you...
Yeah. So when first of all, we definitely take big measures to protect ourselves in that way. But it's all about upfront diligence. So if you came to me and said, hey, I'm ready to sell my property, want to go through a full marketing process, we've got a checklist that we send over to you of various third-party reports, internal reports that we need, just so we know when we go to market, we know everything about the property and can tell the full story top to bottom.
Can investors request those reports?
They can. Typically, sometimes there can be pushback, especially if they're expensive reports, third-party reports, that they may just want to wait to share that, until due diligence.
Right.
But we'll get them up front to make sure that, like, hey, if there are big issues, we're out there, we're not going to hide anything, because that can come back to bite you guys. It can come back to bite us, right?
Yeah.
So we'll ask for things like property condition reports from their acquisition, environmental reports, maintenance request history. What's the, your CapEx spend over the course of your ownership tenure? Tell us that. We'll go and pull permit history on these deals just to see where, they've been given attention. And given the vintage of these properties, you can sometimes identify some of the potential roadblocks coming, right? So, for example, in the 70s, aluminum wiring was, kind of in vogue there for 5 or 6 years. And
my house, my wife and I live in a house right now that caught fire. It had aluminum wiring. Yeah. Wow. When she was a kid, when she was in high school.
Yeah.
Everyone was okay. Yeah.
So we'll go in and identify that on the front end and say, okay, what is the wiring composition? If it's aluminum, has it been remediated? There are ways to kind of take steps to protect yourself in that way. If it hasn't, right, that's got a big effect on pricing, because the next buyer is going to have to come in, whether they want to or their lender wants them to or their insurance wants them to. They're going to have to do it, and there's a added cost associated with that. On 60s and early 70s properties too, flat roofs were pretty common too, and those can age quicker. So just kind of putting that on a scale versus a newer property that may have vaulted ceilings, pitched roofs that can last longer. That's all part of developing the model, putting your CapEx budget together, which ultimately affects value.
Yeah.
We have 15 minutes left.
Oh boy.
What do you want to tackle?
I think we could sit here and talk for 3 hours.
I know. Legit. Just give me another fucking caffeinated drink. We keep going.
Oh man.
We should have asked you if you wanted anything. We didn't think about that. We stopped. We're kind of like on vacation mode a little bit.
Stepped in here and we were rolling.
Yes. I wanted it to be rolling when you came in, so it could be like a little...
I love it.
Nice thing.
Yeah.
But with 15 minutes left, I guess, let's talk about like scaling and like your take on...
Yeah. So like something...
Maybe even like mistakes you see when people scale, or like tips on scaling. And obviously scaling just meaning like growing from buying a 10 unit to a 30 to a 40 to 100 to 200.
I mean, in the normal case of, most everything else, we're kind of like, let's jump in and we'll figure it out. We'll make mistakes. We'll figure it out. You can't really make a mistake in a 100 unit property, so we're trying to, I guess, outline, first of all, the opportunity, and second of all, the method.
Yeah.
So, let's use like the 93 unit we walked through as an example.
Yeah.
So that's something, when you see someone take that down,
what are we looking for?
Like their funding, Is that preferred equity? Is that like kind of mezzanine debt?
There's all kinds of money out there. Yeah. I mean, we'll have syndicators. I mean, on that deal in particular, we had a pretty healthy offer list there. So we had family offices looking at it. We had, just high net worth individuals. We had syndicators. We had all the like.
Yeah.
So with you guys on the syndication side, I think from a seller's perspective, what they're going to be looking for is, okay, if you've got to go get debt, you've got to do your due diligence, you've got to go get insurance, and you've got to go raise money from what could be a relatively large group of people. That's just another added layer. And so they're probably going to be looking for something in exchange, to kind of offset the risk that they're taking on by tying their property up with a syndicator like you, right? So some ways that you can kind of regain a competitive advantage, or at least balance the playing field, would be things like terms, more aggressive terms. Even the little things, like for us, when we go through a marketing process, we'll get to the end and we'll send out a questionnaire with some of those questions I was laying out earlier, like where are you getting your debt from, where are you getting your equity from, what are you assuming for X, Y, and Z inputs into your model.
Yeah.
The more thoroughly you fill that out, that gets back to the sellers to say, hey, they've really taken the time to do their due diligence here up front. They clearly know what they're getting into. I've got a little bit more confidence in kind of hitching my wagon to them for the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
Little things can go a long way like that.
Any kind of like not paperwork, but like approvals that you can show, like
or references, things like that. That all goes.
So you put that in with the LOIs, like that would be like a good.
You
practice.
could, that would be a great idea. I mean, we've seen letters. If you have, one or two bigger equity partners, maybe, looping them into the conversation. Nice. It's not uncommon where, we'll get to the end of that process there and we'll set up buyer interview calls. And just the more tidied up, the more knowledgeable you are of the property and the market in particular, and showing that, yes, I do have the equity lined up, those all can go a long way in separating yourselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because keep in mind, you oftentimes could be competing out there with the high net worth individuals that
someone could just throw $5 million at it.
Right, and they've got way fewer hoops to jump through to get a deal done. But at the same time, if that high net worth individual comes to us and says, hey, we're going to go get an agency loan at 80% loan to value at a 4% interest rate, we clearly know that they haven't done their homework, because that's just not where the market is today.
Exactly.
Right? So that's a big red flag.
Exactly. And I could see, I think I even did this with my first house that I kind of backed into flipping, but I basically showed the cash, said I was purchasing cash, and then went and got a mortgage.
Yeah, proof of funds is huge.
You're just proving, hey, if I wanted to, I could. Right. I have the capability to close this deal no matter what.
Yeah.
But that helps me get my foot in the door first, and then I'll go do my get whatever loan that I'm going to use for it.
And if you've got a relationship in there too, that can go a long way. Again, it comes back to that holistic view.
I mean, that's kind of where we've put our focus over the last couple of months, especially with the market being, crazy. Like, okay, what can we do, tidy up our own house kind of thing while we're waiting for the market to settle a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of them was just try to get more relationships, try to get more time with, I guess, either preferred equity or, financing institutions. And
stay
like
underwriting deals, stay offering on deals. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's like, I go, hey, Mr. Seller, these buyers have been investing final on our last 3, 4, 5 deals. They're committed. They know the market. They're super in tune. They're really eager to get their foot in the door here. Those are stories that, we see bought into often. So.
I mean, I think what we struggle with all the time a little bit is like, if a number pencils at, if property pencils at a certain number, we don't want to make you look bad, but if the number's like low, but shit, that's where it pencils.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's why we always ask you. I'm always like, Luke, this is the number we're at. You know, is this is the seller going to flip out if we?
No, and usually from there, no matter what that number is, I want to go through your model with you guys.
Yeah.
Just make sure that we're out of, because maybe you might be more aggressive on something. I'm like, hey guys, this might be out of line. Don't get ahead of yourself. Or like, hey, there's some upside here that you may not be seeing that you may want to factor in your model. So
yeah.
So that's something I think we try. It's hard because when you do have a lot of deals coming across and not all of them are perfect, like we wouldn't necessarily jump on them anyway. do you still suggest like we put the LOI or at least put an email together of what we're seeing, what our pro forma is?
100%.
Like, I mean, every property has a number, right? Every property has a number.
I think sometimes I feel like I don't want to necessarily lead this agent on, think we're like super interested in this deal. Like I already don't, like that's not our criteria fully. Sure. Right. So, like, I don't know if I should even push the email, the price we'd pay, and, it almost feels like I'm unsure how to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, look, that just comes down to your criteria and what you're looking for. But underwriting deals in markets that you've got your eye on is never going to hurt, whether it's big or small. Yeah. You're always going to learn. And, you do that, a bunch of times. I'm sure you guys are like this in San Marco now, where, like, you could almost underwrite those deals in your head. You know where rents are going to go. You know what, a lot of your expense inputs are going to be. And you can tell pretty easily back of the napkin, like, all right, should I take the time and spend, take the time to spend underwriting this deal, or should I just move on to the next one?
I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question. I want to hear just your take on like market rent. So I know, is it fact that like, do you come up with a market rent in whether it's your pro formas and your OMs or somebody else's? Do you come up with market rents based on data, or do you come based on like an investor, like a comparable?
So we take a 3-pronged approach to underwriting pro forma rents. One,
and I'm sorry, I just asked because I always question the market rent that an agent is.
Sure.
I mean, you just have to, right? Like, what happens when you get in the deal and you can't get it there?
Look, we put a lot of homework and data into our market rents, our pro forma rents, but I would still say go do your homework and make sure.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, good point. Every time.
But how we look at it is, one, what do the comps say in the immediate area? Similar size, vintage, amenities, things like that. Yeah. 2, what's already been achieved? What does that high watermark look like on the rent roll today? That's already been proven out. And then 3, I think this is especially important in high growth markets. How does that shake out from a cost of living perspective? So
like income to debt, like income to
household income ratio. Yeah, exactly. So taking Jacksonville in particular, we see the market supporting 25 to 30% rent to income ratios. Now, a lot of these value add deals that we're looking at, the in place rents can sometimes be as low as like 11, 12%. And another reason why we're so bullish on Jacksonville is you go look at those same ratios in comparable markets like Tampa, like Orlando, Raleigh, Durham, other southeastern markets. They're 30 plus. So
you said Jacksonville is what around?
Jacksonville, kind of the stabilized properties that we're seeing and the way the incomes are able to support that high watermarks in the 25 to 30% range.
So what like right now, it doesn't have to be exact, what is the median income?
It's raising. I remember one of our last conversations, you were saying that it's raised.
Good question, man. I could probably tell you that metric for a number of different submarkets. For the MSA, though, I would probably say somewhere around the 80,000 range.
So, okay.
Yeah. But again, that's submarket dependent. You know.
And Jacksonville's
obviously
they're
so big,
so different, so big.
Biggest land area, mass city, right?
Continental U.S. Yeah.
I remember my parents drove down to it was West Coast, Florida, but they drove down through Jacksonville when we first purchased the property here back. The duplex that we purchased in 2017, and they were driving through Jacksonville. They let me know driving through Jacksonville, like when they first got to it. And it was like the end of the next day. They were like, we just got through Jacksonville. I was like, it's pretty big.
That's it, man. We've grown definitely horizontal. But we're seeing, especially inside the Beltway, 295 Beltway, a lot of stuff's been picked over. So, we've got this construction mapper that our analysts put together that layers in construction by decades, 60s and on.
That'd be cool.
When you layer those in, it's on a Google map, you'll see that the construction's growing outwards, right? And now you're starting to see things push into St. Johns County, up into the north side, into the airport area, out in west side towards Cecil Commerce Center, just because that's where the land is.
But when's it going up?
Is it going up?
When is it going up?
Yeah, good question.
I love that look,
I think, we're going to need to see some of the more established infill markets like downtown, like the South Side quarter that we're sitting in now.
Downtown has such a it's right
awesome.
There, I know.
We're excited about it, man.
They tore down that, what was the
The landing?
The landing, which
yes.
was ridiculous. I used to come here and be like, what is this thing? Like, it's right on the river. Somebody, please.
I know it's happening, man. I mean, we were here right before the Great Recession where we had a bunch of projects in the pipeline and then the floor fell out. And Jacksonville for the longest time has been that good old boy network. And it was tough to get things pushed through, especially if you were just coming from the outside. Now, I think we've got some good leadership in the city. You know, the fundamentals here economically remain really strong. And I think most importantly, we've got some good visionaries in place, like Shad Khan, who owns the Jags. You know, the guys over at JWB, who, you know, are willing to take some of those risks to wake up that downtown, which historically has been a 9 to 5 area, you know, just a place for people to work and get out of there. But now we've got over 1,000 housing units in the pipeline. And I think that's going to be huge because once you get people living there, then you're going to see things like the grocery and retail follow, and then it just kind of scales from there. So we're excited about it.
I think it would be so cool. My initial thought was like, okay, this area must flood every couple of years and nobody wants to come in.
No, man.
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
30 years.
The bones are there, man. The bones are there. We just need some housing. Yeah. We got the sports and entertainment district too. There's a lot of exciting projects, even beyond apartments, that are going on there.
Yeah.
Let's go T-Law.
Yeah, baby.
I know. Yeah, I was excited.
We could spend a whole podcast talking about that Jacksonville game.
Yeah, what a time.
The season. We got 3 minutes, by the way.
Oh, no, the Cowboys won a game in the playoffs.
They won a game.
We
all of our teams.
We were all there. That's right.
Game.
We were represented.
Yeah.
What a time.
Except Knox. Sorry for the Colts, but. But yeah.
All right. Well, we got to kind of close it out a little bit. I don't know if.
What I want to know is where can I find this? I mean, I'm following you guys on Instagram, but where can I find this content and everything else moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I guess Instagram. We haven't really set up like TikTok or anything like that, but more LinkedIn. We're trying to get a lot of stuff on LinkedIn.
Right.
We got to put this on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
And YouTube. Yeah.
This might be the first video.
Okay. That's where we'll find this one.
This will be the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
And then we'll try to cut it up. Like we'll send you this whole thing so you can use it too on your socials.
Love to. Yeah. I appreciate that.
I'm thinking of like the shit you were saying. Some of the stuff maybe chopping up like quote wise. Like
please.
Kind of shooting it out in like Twitter kind of stuff. Not to like claim being
we covered a lot. Then, so.
It just adds. It adds credibility to you. You know. I mean that was kind of our goal. Like. Get stuff for all three of us or four of us. Knox too.
Yeah, because ultimately, like we met you, we know you're you know you got your shit together. You know what you're doing, and like more people have to like communicate with you because
100%.
We benefited communicating with you. Other people will as well.
Look, we pride ourselves on putting out good content ourselves too. So, you know, if anybody wants to reach out, we've got a pretty vast email list that we're always putting out good content. We got quarterly reports. We got a monthly, what we call a trends blast, just capturing some recent headlines and good stats that may not meet the eye otherwise, just to keep people informed as, look, Jacksonville's fundamentals are strong. We've got a diverse employment market, growing population, job growth, wage growth, all on the rise here. So want to continue to raise the noise there as I think there's plenty of opportunity here for quite a long time.
Yeah, and you're a rock star, so
appreciate it, guys.
Where can people reach out to you like personally?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as well, at Luke McCann. LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on there. Shoot me an email, lmm@naiallmark.com. Would love to get more people on our list, have more conversations, and just spread the good word about Jax.
Yeah. Amen to that. We'll put up everything like on the on the video too. We could put up
in the link below.
Is that
link?
Yeah, right here.
Click on the next video. Subscribe.
I don't think we're not there yet. We're gonna start practicing.
You want to know the truth? I'm like, it sometimes appears bad, but it could appear good if it depends how you want to take it. But like my number one thing is just shoot from the hip. Like what is it? Shoot. Ready, fire, aim. Ready, fire, aim. Yeah, like ready, fire, aim. Like I appear to be all over the place, but I'm doing something at least. Like that's kind of like, and perfect is better than done. 100%. That's like, done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect.
Like, and everyone looks at me and is like, dude, look what you did. I'm like, at least it's fucking done. You can fix it now. Like, like at least we got somewhere.
Like, take action.
So we don't know what the fuck we're doing, basically.
Yeah.
So,
look, man, well, you guys have killed it on getting your foot in the door here in Jackson. I know there's more big things for you guys to come and expanding your holdings here. So,
ready to go.
From you,
excited to hear what
coming from you and your support is huge. So,
thank you for always, helping us out, answering our questions,
being patient.
Thank you for the condolence texts when my team loses in the playoffs. I give you those too. But I
feel I talked to Luke today about this property or something. He's like, yeah, I talked to Luke, but it was about the Jags. I'm like, what the fuck?
Whiskey and football, right?
That's it, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for having me on. This is cool. First time on the podcast, so honored.
I think we did it.
Ours too. I think we killed it.